aren't coming here, either to the hotels or to the pyramids. The entire area is closed. There's no more business. This has destroyed the entire country.
Perhaps even more devastating, Human Rights Watch says nearly 300 people have been killed so far during the uprising. The pall of insecurity hangs over the country. Private tennis clubs are still packed, but for millions of ordinary Egyptians, professional football matches have been canceled until further notice. Another casualty in what many are calling a time of revolution. Rosalind Jordan, Al Jazeera.
Well, meanwhile, the man who says he was behind the Facebook page that played such a big part in the uprising has been released from custody. Wael Ghonim, a senior Google executive, was freed on Monday. This bit of video appears to show the moment he was captured. That was on January the 28th.
First of all, I send my condolences to all the people who were killed. It was a peaceful revolution. We didn't want to do any damage. Don't focus your cameras on me. I'm not a hero. The real heroes are the youth who are behind this revolution. By God's will, we're going to clean this country of this rubbish.
Well, many people in Egypt are hoping that the worst is over and the country can slowly get back to some sense of normality. But just how bad did things get? New videos emerged of some of the most extreme violence that took place in the capital last week. Here's Andrew Simmons.
We've verified the locations and the timings of these pictures. They relate to last Wednesday when pro-Mubarak supporters attacked anti-government demonstrators. The pictures were taken at night. And I have to warn you, you may find many of these images disturbing. A crowd of anti-government protesters surrounding a pro-Mubarak supporters bus that had driven at speed into their number earlier. It's late last Wednesday night. They try to turn the vehicle over, ripping open the driver's door. There's no escape. Here, the driver's already been pulled out, and he's being lynched. From these pictures, it appears no one else was on the bus, but we can't verify that, and the fate of the driver is unknown. The frenzy of anger continues right through the night into the early hours of Thursday. Across the bridge, pro-Mubarak supporters on the move again, seemingly intent on more confrontation. But it all goes wrong. A mob of anti-government protesters swelling in numbers and showing no mercy. Each of the 9 men are attacked. Revenge for the earlier violence in which many of their numbers were killed. Hatred. While some of the men are led away, beaten as they go, another was singled out. It hasn't been possible to establish how many victims of this night lived or died. This was all filmed by a European cameraman. He says 14 minutes later, there was yet another dimension to the violence. Gunfire on the bridge aimed at anti-government protesters. A laser picks out individuals. This round finds its target. It can't be established at this stage who fired these shots, just as it isn't possible to identify victims or their attackers. The questions over last Wednesday night, Thursday morning, linger. There's yet to be an investigation into these attacks, and official figures on deaths and casualties appear inaccurate. It may never be known exactly how many people died on Wednesday and Thursday morning of last week.
Now, some 8 million people in South Sudan have been told that they will soon have their own new country. The official results have confirmed what nearly 99% of them already knew. They did choose to split from the north after January's referendum. The celebrations have begun already, but as Harun Mutasa reports, there is also some concern about the future.
It was expected most Southerners would vote to separate from the North, but the overwhelming numbers of people who did so is amazing for people here in the South. It just shows how desperately and how urgently people here have wanted to split, and they voted for secession. The main hope for the people is that perhaps if they govern themselves, they will be able to develop a region that they feel has been neglected for many, many decades by officials in the North. It's going to be a huge challenge, a huge task for officials. Time may be be against them. People here have high expectations. They want schools, they want hospitals, they want basic services like running water. This takes money, this takes help from the international community, but generally officials here are saying that they will do their best. They know they have a mammoth task ahead of them, and they're saying that with the support of the people, with the patience of the people, they hope that these outcomes can be achieved. On Monday night, there will be celebrations here in the South. People are already celebrating. It's a momentous occasion. It's a historic occasion, but on the backs of everyone's mind, they know that the road ahead will not be easy.
The WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, has been in court in the UK fighting extradition to Sweden, where he's wanted for questioning over accusations of sexual assault. His defence lawyer says he'll face a flagrant denial of justice if the prosecutor's request is granted. Lawrence Lee reports.
Arriving at court, Julian Assange looked relaxed and less tense than he sometimes does, surrounded by high-profile celebrities, human rights supporters, and urged on by a group of young protesters who see the dark hand of the CIA behind this rape case. His team had tried to steal a march on the prosecutors by publishing his defence against the allegations online, all very WikiLeaks, and they sought to dismantle the extradition case. His defence team argues the Swedish prosecutor doesn't have the right to issue a European arrest warrant. They're concerned the trial would be held in secret with no chance of open justice. They also call it an abuse of process because Assange has offered himself for questioning but was turned down. They also argue Assange is the victim of illegal, corrupt behaviour by the Swedish prosecutors and that any extradition could lead to his deportation to the United States, where he could face the death penalty. The prosecution insists Assange did use violence in his sexual activities in Sweden and tried to play down fears that the case is a ruse to clear the way for an extradition to the United States. The defence team here have started to produce witnesses to try to undermine the extradition case against Julian Assange. Their first, a female retired Swedish judge who says she had more than 30 years' experience in criminal law. She said she regarded the prosecutor's evidence in Sweden against Assange as peculiar and malicious, and the prosecutor as having biased views against men. Yet when the prosecutor here tried to ask her questions, she suddenly found it very difficult to explain Swedish law in English, or even at times to understand some of the questions. Another witness suggested one of the alleged victims had changed her story.
That 48 hours after the crime, the alleged crime, she volunteered to become Julian Assange's personal press secretary. The story given to the police does not bring up those instances.
And Assange himself told the media he was feeling more confidence, and so did his supporters.
5.5 months. We have been in a condition where a black box has been applied to my life. And on the outside of that black box has been written the word rape. That box is now, thanks to an open court process, being opened. And I hope over the next day we will see that that box is in fact empty and has nothing to do with the words that are on the outside of it.
I think that some of the evidence came through, which is a very good news, that the truth is emerging.
The hearing is scheduled to end on Tuesday. There may or there may not be a final ruling on the extradition. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera in London.
An Islamist rebel leader says he ordered the suicide bombing that killed 36 people at Russia's busiest airport last month. In a video posted on an Islamist website, Doku Umarov describes the attack on Moscow's Domodedovo airport on January the 24th as a special operation directed specifically against the Russian people and Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. He added there'll be more attacks in pursuit of an independent Muslim state in Russia's Caucasus region. An official review into the release of the man convicted of the Lockerbie bombing in 1998 has concluded that the British government did all it could to engineer the release of Abdelbasset al-Megrahi. The current Prime Minister, David Cameron, has called the previous government's decision a mistake. Paul Brennan reports.
The release of the Lockerbie bomber Abdel Basit Ali Mohammed al-Megrahi in 2009 caused considerable anger in America and the UK. And the news that behind the scenes the then UK government was doing all it could to secure his freedom will further stir up emotions. Megrahi remains the only person to have been convicted of involvement in the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in 1988, an outrage which killed a total of 270 people. Megrahi's freedom was granted by the devolved authorities in Scotland on compassionate grounds, on the basis that he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Publicly, the government of Prime Minister Gordon Brown in London kept its distance.